Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX. My name is Gauri Kuntalia. Now, amid all the tensions between China and Taiwan escalating, it seems that cross-strait tensions could spur efforts in China to use legislation to target independence-seeking politicians in Taiwan. Now, China stated that it was drawing up a blacklist of die-hard Taiwanese separatists and their financial supporters. The list was also seen as a warning to Taiwan not to get too close to USA, and came after former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stated that Taiwan has not been a part of China. Tensions over the Taiwan Strait have continued to rise in the years since, particularly recently, with PLA sending over 150 military aircrafts to the island air defense identification zone. Now, to discuss this further and decode this in greater detail, we have with us a panel of guests. We have with us Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat. We also have with us Major General K.K. Sinha, a global strategic and defense expert. Dr. Srikanth Kondapalli also joins us. He's a China and foreign policy expert, as does Colonel Dinesh Nain, who is a foreign affairs expert. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Dr. Kondapalli, if I could open with you first, help us understand what this intended legislation is and the kind of effect it can have.
Well, the Chinese have been attempting various non-peaceful means, as they would say, of subjugating Taiwan. A gray zone tactics, military operations other than war, a non-peaceful resolution of the Taiwan as they passed a legislation in 2005. These were some of the things that they have done, but not very successful. But with the Hong Kong new security law that was passed in March, and it appears that the Chinese were relatively successful in putting down the protests in Hong Kong, with so much cost, of course. So it appears that one of the measures that they are willing to do in terms of Taiwan is also to block any independence activists. And Xi Jinping had met with Lian Chen, the KMT leader, before, and Lian Chen was invited to Beijing. And this was one way of interfering in Taiwan by approaching the Kuomintang, which is for reunification, and countering the DPP, the ruling party now, Democratic Progressive Party, whose constitution mentions about independence, but they have not initiated any measures regarding the independence. So this legislation, like the one that they introduced on Hong Kong, they think that they can create the kind of effect that Hong Kong has gone through in the last 6-7 months by arresting all those activists who called for democracy, who called for the CEO of Hong Kong to be responsible for Hong Kong, not for other places. So essentially learning lessons from Hong Kong, they are now projecting this to Taiwan. However, in terms of the opinion polls, public opinion polls within Taiwan, there is between 80 to 90 of them, they identify themselves as Taiwanese now. And they also have a critical comment on the Chinese gray zone tactics in all these measures. Right. So, for instance, there are 2 million Taiwanese living in China, and some of them got married to the mainland people, and the spouses have come back to Taiwan, and they are in the forefront of pro-China demonstrations. Taiwan being a democratic country, so they are demonstrating against the DPP and other independence activists or independence policies, and supporting mainland China. So in other words, this became a kind of Trojan horse, these demonstrations. While demonstrations are not allowed in China, yet they use these demonstrations in Taiwan for, countering the what we think as politically sensitive issues. So China is investing quite a huge amount both time, money, and other resources to pursue these non-peaceful methods of reunification.
All right. Ambassador Vora, if I could come to you, help us put this into context because the memory of Hong Kong is still fresh in our minds, and given what has been what's been happening between China and Taiwan lately, help us draw the context of this, what could possibly be this new law.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to learn from you, from the outstanding Professor Srikant, from General Sinha, who was brilliant, and of course from Mr. Mukherjee. Do you see the virtual background? That's a Statue of Liberty from Tiananmen Square. It was erected in 1989 when kids in China said, enough is enough, we want freedom. 5,000 of them paid with their lives. That is the reality of China. Ma'am, let me put it to you. On the 1st of July 2021, just a few weeks ago, this character called Xi Jinping, he appeared in Tiananmen Square to celebrate the centenary of the Chinese Communist Party in a Mao suit. He was not wearing his ping pong dress. This means that the party, not the Communist Party, but the party that people thought was coming with China's great economic development is over. Now, leaders like Ping Pong have become adept at stoking nationalism to their advantage, whether it be diplomats lashing out at the West, social media users raging against tech billionaires. These jokers have never heard of Robert Merton's law of unexpected consequences. You try and push Taiwan hard, telling them that don't get into bed too much with the United States. The result is exactly the opposite. The Taiwanese go closer and the United States says, come buddy, we'll do what you want. Now in 2017, Ping Pong had said that China stands tall. The party in return today has upended presidential succession norms, clamped down on internal discussion, and we see a rising wealth gap, which is very serious. There are many young Chinese that I know of who prefer what is called lying flat, effectively opting out of the rat race and adopting a minimalist lifestyle. China spends more on internal security than it does on defense. What are they scared of?
Right.
What are they scared of? The People's Liberation Army, that it will liberate the people from the Communist Party of China. And finally, Xi seems to have studied the collapse of the Soviet Union post-perestroika. He thought economic reforms did them in, and a military that wasn't standing by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. So he's trying to increase, as his prime minister said, the loyalty of the military of the PLA, and at the same time, no political reform. The chickens or the hens are coming home to roost. You're going to see much more repression, and what is now happening to crush Taiwan's spirit, to crush Hong Kong's spirit, to crush the Uyghur spirit, to destroy Tibetan identity. Well, Ping Pong is going to have a pretty noxious legacy in this.
Okay. All right. Major General Sinha, then what does the world do at a juncture like this? Because we've seen what's happened with Hong Kong, and we don't want that to happen with Taiwan. There is, of course, the United States and the Quad and other members. But what can the world do to prevent another Hong Kong?
Look, ma'am, the world is doing, it seems that United States of America especially, they have decided once for all that the Taiwan is a testing ground. If Taiwan is taken by force or by design, if China is trying to do it, one thing will be very clear, that, downfall of US, that will get absolutely, loud and clear, because Americans have, willy-nilly, they have, sided with Taiwan. See what is happening in Taiwan. Taiwan, everything is at stake for China, and there is a stake for the world also, and especially United States of America, around which every other country is also pivoting around. Now, how to understand this? Taiwan, what we have seen in Hong Kong is very correct. It is a coup through which the Chinese have got their domination in Hong Kong. A national security legislation which came, and we have seen how the Hong Kong, everything is done by force and by enforcement in Hong Kong. What happened in Taiwan is slightly a different story we have to understand. Tsai Lung-wen, sea is the symbol of that resistance which the Taiwan is giving. She came in power in 2016 and she is in the second term and she will remain till 2024. What you have heard the defense minister of Taiwan saying, by 2025, that China by force, they are trying to do it. What they are doing today, whether they are going in their space, they are planning, they are, by taking by force, the Xi Jinping knows about it. It's just impossible to take Taiwan as on today. At the same time, DPP, that is Democratic Progressive Party, they have got a lot of support of the Taiwanese. They are doing many things. First thing is defense. It is like a porcupine. They are trying to have the missile defense. They will have the strengthening of all, where the Chinese can come by force. Taiwan can't be taken by air. It has to have an amphibious operation by force if they want to take it. Which the Chinese have in their mind, they have understood it is just impossible. The way the things are gravitating in Indo-Pacific, it will become impossible by 2025. That you take it. Now what next? The next is a coup. A coup which is a political coup and which has been brought out by both the eminent speaker before me, is a coup on which they are depending. If you remember, it was brought out by the first speaker, the chairman, Johnny Chang, how he has disposed toward the China. He has totally disposed. And that has given, China a lot of hope. And that's why now they are thinking to have something enforcement mechanism related to Taiwan, but they will bring it. First thing, they have already prepared a list of all those Taiwanese and the Chinese, even the Chinese are there, mainland Chinese, who are supporting the idea of Taiwan, because the democracy is the pivot on which the whole thing is now building it up. And when the ambassador, Bora was bringing out very nicely what happened in Tiananmen Square, it is a symbol of one thing, that is the democracy versus the communism. So the idea of that the Chinese have for last about 25 years, that Xi Jinping is trying to reverse it. Right. Nationalism, which is trying, it is basically a communism idea, having a closed door, and he has failed in two of these things since he has been the chairman of 2012. One thing is the idea of having the CPAC Road and Belt Initiative. CPAC has failing, and the second thing he wanted to have the unification of Taiwan so that he can show the world. That seems to be also failing.
Okay. All right, Major General Sinha, at this point, Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, also joins us on the show. Mr. Mukherjee, same question to you, but in a more specific way. What can these multilaterals and mini-laterals, so to speak, what is the role they can play? We have the Quad, we have Aukus and several other mini-laterals. What role can they play to actually contain China as far as its Taiwan plans are concerned?
Hello. Remember, amongst other things, there's 20,000 US troops in Taiwan. Then there's Japan, which Guam is a US base, and Japan is a US protectorate. What has dawned on Z a little late in the day, because the last time China managed to actually conquer anything was when the world wasn't ready for that kind of five years palm kind of rhetoric, and got conned into letting a lot of things happen because there was a broad sweep socialist sympathy after all the colonialism. Today, he can't conquer Taiwan, and he realized that the Americans and the allies, which includes the Quad and Aukus, are determined to sit there and watch the Chinese mainland. And democracy cannot keep China. I don't understand this business of 2025. Not now, not in 25, not ever.
Right, of course. Ambassador Bora, if I could come to you for a more specific question about India, and what can the role of India be and how can that change now? Is it time now to finally do away with the one China policy recognition?
As long as that one China is democratic China, which at this point of time is Taiwan, I would be very happy if we had a one China policy. You can again see another virtual image of how the police butchered those kids in Tiananmen Square. Well, one thing you've talked about lists being made. I'm told, Professor Srikanth, do ask your buddies in China if my name is on the list, given all the abuse that we fling at them on NewsX. So in the next few days, if I reach my expiry date, you'll know who's responsible for it. Ma'am, India's role in this is very, very clear. It has emerged over a period of time. Thanks to outstanding soldiers of India like General Sinha, we've smashed the myth about the PLA's invincibility by what we did in Galwan. The Chinese are terrified of India's naval capability, what we can do in the Malacca Straits. So they are aware that India has a great role to play. We are the only one of the Quad members that shares a land border with China. Now, if they have to do anything, they are not going to play games with us. It was the biggest self-goal Galwan was that China has scored since the invasion of Vietnam in 1979. Now they will try to get hot on Taiwan, and again, they are going to get a kick in the pants, ma'am, very, very hard. What I see India doing here is mobilizing international opinion. India is already in Quad. India is doing whatever it can to call out China. We are decoupling, in a sense, from China all the apps. We were the first country to ban those apps. Others followed suit and so on. It may not hurt China very much, but let me assure you, the reputational damage that China has suffered because of Galwan and because of the action that we have taken will take 1 trillion years for China to recover that. I don't know if Ping Tong will live for 1 trillion years. He thinks he will. But nevertheless, India is already showing the world what it takes to call the Chinese bluff.
Okay. All right. Dr. Konapalli, coming back to these legislations, help us understand how and if can China actually implement it, and what kind of impact will that have then if they're implemented?
Well, the current effort is to pass a National People's Congress, that is the Chinese Parliament resolution on blacklisting some Taiwanese politicians or Taiwanese officials who have been advocating independence. So similar to what has happened in Xinjiang or in Tibet or other regions in the recent past, the Chinese are also in a way trying to adapt to this. Because in Xinjiang related issue, they have banned a few European Parliament members and also a few scholars, including Merrick's institution, which had written about the Xinjiang issue.
Right.
So this is a model that they are planning to adopt to Taiwan as well. In terms of some intellectuals or officials who have been advocating independence, or very critical of China in terms of the political equations in Taiwan. So this is basically a subversive activity that China is trying to do with Taiwan political system, because they were unable to resolve through the Air Force or through missiles or through other military means. So this is a measure that they want to do and test if Taiwan could succumb to the pressures from mainland China. They have also tried the economic means through an ECFA agreement, ECFA, Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, which they tried to sign when Ma Ying-jeou was president. However, there was no consensus in Taiwan about a free trade area with China. And so there was the Sunflower Movement organized by various students and other youth activists some years ago, and they canceled the agreement with China on a free trade area. The Chinese also tried to put pressure on Taiwan by investing, also by sending droves of tourists, some 3 to 4 million tourists a year during Ma Ying-chu's term were sent to Taiwan. It used to earn a lot of hard currency, but after Tsai Ing-wen won the elections, they have cancelled all these and they use tourism as a weapon to subjugate Taiwan. But this also did not really function well for the Chinese. So they are scratching their heads on what to do next on Taiwan. So this is a measure that they have come out with, but I do not see any effectiveness of this measure because Taiwan is a well-educated society. They keep monitoring all these, and they go by the democratic debates and experiments within the island. The other aspect I wanted to say was that within the Communist Party in China, there is now competitive politics, which is who will be more harsher on Taiwan. So in the light of this, there is, in the light of also the 20th Party Congress that is due next October. So there is an effort now to say, I'm more harsher than the other factional leader. And so I'm taking these measures against Taiwan. So this is also very counterproductive because it doesn't have a discussion, it doesn't have a dialogue with the Taiwanese. And so there is a problem with this approach as well, the hard approach. So the current leadership is only trying to push a hard approach, which is actually counterproductive, and it is proving to be counterproductive.
Right.
If you look at the public opinion polls.
Right. Picking on a thread that Dr. Kondapalli actually left for us, Major General Sinha, how is this in terms of signaling? Because there are many regions in China. We of course show that real map of China several times on our own channel. What do they want to signal with laws like this to regions like Xinjiang, to regions like Xinjiang, to regions like Inner Mongolia? General Sinha.
He's meditating.
Okay, I believe that we've lost his video. Mr. Mukherjee, why don't you take that?
Oh, he's back. No, he's not. Okay, go ahead.
All right, Mr. Mukherjee.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now, sir. So could you hear my question?
Yeah, I heard your question.
Okay,
and
go
you
on.
asked,
Go on, please.
Your question is that is the China is experimenting what they are doing in Taiwan and what they have done in Hong Kong.
Yes.
They want to replicate it somewhere in Xinjiang or the Inner Mongolia, if that is the question. See, one thing is there. As far as the Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang is concerned, China by force is sitting tight. In spite of that, there are some, hue and cry, but not enough in the world. In Taiwan is a different story. Taiwan, Chinese tried, Xi Jinping tried, military, diplomatic, economic pressure. That has more or less failed. Even the military pressure is failing. No one takes it seriously, and neither they can do it. Who understands that they require 2 million, amphibious force to land in, 12 beaches and about 13, ports, which is next to impossible for them. So now coming to that, political thing, what they are trying to do it with legislation, bringing out reinforcement law and things like that. I don't think it's going to work. Only thing what is working as far as Xinjiang is concerned,
Okay, all right, sir. We believe we are having some audio glitches.
As brought out by the doctor and also by the ambassador and Mukherjee.
Okay, we are having some audio glitches with General Sinha. Mr. Mukherjee, same question to you in terms of signaling. What does it mean, and then how can we check it?
In terms of what they will be able to do internally, it's not something that handling and much greater and greater trouble the less they are able to spend there, the less they are able to implement military
Okay, unfortunately, we are having a very bad day with that those audio connections. Ambassador Bora wants to come in, sir.
Just wanted to say something that many of us asked this question: why didn't Mao Ding Dong invade Taiwan in 1949? Between June 49, June 50, PLA generals against under Ding Dong, they undertook intensive battle planning preparations to what was to become the formative strategic challenge facing communist China. You remember this, that they did not, there was a Taiwan Works Committee, etc. They were all ready to invade Taiwan, and then the Korean War intervened, and everybody got involved in that. So what they were not able to do in the global scenario in 1949-50, ma'am, 2021, 2022 is a totally different world. If the Chinese try it today, let me assure you, they won't damage Taiwan, they will destroy themselves. I speak of the Chinese Communist Party.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have on the broadcast. I'd like to thank all my guests for joining us on this very special show.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.